the sooner you screw up, the sooner you're going to get better. Because
Right.
man, you only learn when you screw up, pretty much.
What I love about what you just said, I mean, this is why you're a good coach, Richard, is I think one of the biggest mistakes people make when they speak is they brag. And I'm a big believer. I like Brene Brown is a wonderful speaker. She talks about vulnerability, and I completely agree with her on this point. I always tell people, first thing that you should do, stop talking about your successes. Start talking about your failures, because not everybody in your audience has succeeded, but they've all failed.
Welcome to the Sharpen the Spear podcast, where we help home service pros cut through the noise, sharpen their business tools, and reclaim the profit, freedom, and impact they've been missing. I'm your host, Richard Walsh, Profit Freedom Coach, and I'm here to help you stop grinding and start growing. Let's sharpen the spear. And we are back on another STS, Sharpen the Spear podcast with, you guessed it, another incredible guest. I've got Danny Brassell. Dude, is it Brassell?
You did it. You did it. Well
Brassell.
done.
Okay. Jeez, oh man, sometimes it's just a brain fart. Okay,
Yeah.
so, all right, Danny Brassell is with us. And Danny, no one knows you better than you. So, Danny, give us the backstory, bring us up to speed, and let's get into the conversation.
Well, first of all, thanks a lot for having me on, Richard. And thanks more importantly for spreading some joy in the world. We need a lot more of you. If I were going to write an autobiography, it would probably be called Pivots because I feel like I've already lived 9 lives. 30 years ago, I was a reporter, covered President Bush Sr. for the 1992 presidential election. I loved my job, got to meet every editor of every major daily. One editor offered me the City Beat job for $16,500 a year. Meanwhile, a friend told me that they were hiring teachers in South Central Los Angeles for $25,000 a year. So I became an educator for the noblest of reasons, Richard, for the high pay.
Yeah.
And I actually fell in love with teaching. I've taught all age levels from preschoolers all the way up to rocket scientists. I can make that claim because I used to teach English as a second language to engineering students at the University of Southern California. And then in 2005, my wife and I attended a real estate seminar, which turned out to be a scam, and we lost everything. And I could give you the woe is me story, but I'm a positive person. I learned a lot from that experience. First of all, my wife is my soulmate. I put her through the ringer and she stuck right by me. She's an incredible human being. Second of all, money's no longer my ultimate prize because I learned you can lose it just like that. Third, I try not to judge other people anymore because if I was somebody who looked at what I had done, I would have said, well, you deserve that. But now I realize if you don't know everything about a person, you really don't know anything about a person. Fourth, I became a Christian, which I'm always embarrassed to confess, but the more I read the Bible, I'm not the first screw up to find Jesus. And then fifth, I didn't want to file for bankruptcy, and my accountant told me I had to make this much more money that year. And so I started speaking on the side, and I hit that number right on the number. Well, the next year, Richard, he gave me a much higher number, and I hit that number right on the number. So in year three, I thought, well, maybe I should set a higher number. And basically, during one of the worst economic downturns in American history, I was able to build up a highly lucrative speaking business, which attracted the attention of some pretty famous people and companies who wanted me to coach them in speaking. And I resisted that at first, Richard, because you need to know this about me. I'm obsessive compulsive. I have a very high standard for my students. I will not let you fail. I will hold you accountable and be on your back until you succeed. Well, it's been a real blessing working with entrepreneurs and executives and business owners because these people are highly motivated. They do the work and they're succeeding, and it's probably the most gratifying thing I've ever done. So, how's that for a mouthful?
I love it. I love all of it. Every bit. And, the part about you become a Christian and then you really like, I have to remind people of this. King David, okay,
Yeah,
great warrior, all this stuff, man after God's own heart, adulterer, murderer, liar. Okay, we're in good company.
yeah, that's all
So,
right.
it's just, we understand that, right? So we always got to put that in place. But that
I've,
is
I've
awesome.
avoided two of those three, so that's a good.
Yeah, yeah, I'm trying to do the same. I'm good, but yeah, the line, well, we've all lied, so we're never going to beat that one. But I love the whole trajectory of what you did, and I love the pivot aspect because I've done the same thing. Again, great business for 20 years, lost everything in 08, 09. There, you're killing it. I lose everything, lose my home. I just 6 little kids, all that. Got to do the same thing. Got to start over. And again, no, woe is me. Just what's next? I don't know. So we all do it, right? And that's just one of those key things, Danny, that I talk to people. I go, most people can win. Almost anybody can win. Can you lose and come back and play the next day?
Yeah.
That's the key. You know what I mean? It's just my workout this morning. Didn't want to do it. I did my 2 cups of coffee, my mushroom coffee, got to the gym, and I'm looking at the battle ropes, and I'm did 40 squat, and I'm like, I just went through it. It was a good workout, not a great workout. I like to
That's
kill it
great.
every time, but but I did it. It's the same principle, right? So I didn't check that box. I'm good. Get on with things. So, but the speaking career thing. This is obviously I speak. Okay. And I've
Mhm.
been on stage. I've done all this stuff too, not anywhere near your level. But it's always fascinated me the combination of speaking skills, okay, and the ability to monetize it.
Mhm.
Okay. Like this is what a lot of people don't get and they don't know how. And like you did coaching, right? You do coaching, right? Me too. Like I do business. I failed at business. I did 2 more. I got it all figured out, wrote a best-selling book, and then I start coaching people. And I'm really good at it. So it's just that thing like people are like, well, how'd you do that? I go, I don't know. People asked me to help them. And then I found out I'm good at helping them. And I encourage because I've done all the goofy stuff. So I can see their goofy stuff and fix it. So let's just talk about that a little bit. Just kind of the progression from initially speaking into like turning this into the coaching business. You know what I mean? And helping these people. Like what
Yeah,
that
I
look
mean,
like for you?
well, so when I'm working with people who actually most of the people I work with, they actually have no interest in speaking. I'm a big believer in speaking is the fastest way to grow your business, and so I'm helping people create what I call a well-crafted story. Superhero movies they call it your origin story. Politicians call it a stump speech. You can call it peanut butter and jelly. It doesn't matter. What this is a presentation that you're going to deliver again and again to different audiences to introduce yourself to those audiences to get them interested in taking the next step with you. Now, that next step could be an unpaid next step, like subscribe to my podcast or book a free phone call with me. It can be a paid offer, like buy my product or invest in my coaching program. Yes, I want your presentation to move hearts, but more importantly, I want it to move the needle. I'm interested in the numbers, and this is what's effective speaking to me. When I started as a speaker, I always tell people you should always start with the lowest hanging fruit. So I, at the time, was a inner city public school teacher, and so I started by speaking to inner city public school teachers because I knew that group, I knew their trials and tribulations, their pains, and then I was able to expand my audience from there to all teachers, to parent groups, to administrators, and then I was in a mastermind. And one of the guys in my mastermind had a pretty big business, and he wanted me to motivate his sales team. And I said, I don't know if I'm qualified to do that. And he looked at me like I was an idiot. He's like, Danny, if you can get inner city middle school teenage boys to read Shakespeare, I'm pretty sure you can motivate my sales team. And he did me a big favor. He got me thinking bigger. And so the teaching point there for most people is you should start small. The riches are in the niches. I'm coaching a woman right now. And by the way, my business partner loves to tell all the names of the companies and the people. I like a
All
little
right.
bit of discretion, so I change the
Good.
names of people and the companies. So Kathy, I asked her what her niche was, and she said, "Well, I make saddles for professional polo players." I just started laughing. I'm like, Kathy, you're a genius. That's the smartest niche I've ever heard. I'm like, how much money you make last year? And she's like, about $800,000. My jaw dropped. I'm like, I need to learn how to make saddles for professional
Yeah.
polo players. But it's a lot of people think, oh, I'm going to speak to everybody. I'm like, well, if you're speaking to everybody, you're speaking to nobody. You need to really fit. And now you can grow your audience. Again, I grow my audience, but the riches are in the niches. And yeah, I mean, there's different elements. I mean, yes, I'm a paid speaker. Most of the people I'm coaching, they're not paid speakers. They're people that are trying to grow their businesses. And the way they do that is it's the same way you've grown your business, Richard. You're very relatable. I mean, people like you within 30 seconds. That's what your goal is when you're communicating is how do I connect with an audience so that they see themselves in me and want to work further with me.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's so important. Those are all like perfect points, even though this is the first time you've ever probably said them. Okay. So, but for real, the whole niche thing is a really critical thing. I wrote a book and I'm like, okay, I need to niche this, right? I'm not going to write escape the owner prison to everybody. Like, so an employee doesn't care, right? They don't own anything. So I had to do the same thing. And then speaking was the same. My water feature business, when I began the first 20 years, I go to seminars. Well,
Hmm.
that's a niche. I'm dealing with certain contractors, right? So it kind of developed itself over a few decades and start to really learn the power of that. So I'm with you that whenever I'm coaching a business, let's take contractors, for instance, so like you get the guys doing everything from carports to kitchens. Okay. I'm like, uh, let's see if you could, and I try to get them to hone in. Like, even
Yeah.
if they're kitchen and bath, I'm just throwing these examples out there. How about you get rid of the bath part and you be that kitchen guy? You do that because if you can't start at 20, 25 grand for the bath, it's not worth
Hmm.
doing. Okay. So how about you just kitchen's the heart of the home? Okay. This is where it's at. People are like, and so if you give them go that way, all of a sudden you become this expert in this particular area. And then the demand for you goes up.
Yep.
It's like your saddle lady. Okay. She is genius.
Hmm.
Okay. Like you can operate in that niche. You develop the rapport, the authority. It's powerful and it takes time. But eventually, like even with my wife, I'm the guy. I'm the guy to put a pond in your backyard, right? Like artistically and everything else. So I totally get it. I love it.
Indeed.
Say no more in the podcast. No, it's awesome. So, but I want to go. Let's go a little bit deeper on this because public speaking, the number one fear of all human beings,
Yeah.
number one over death. They'd rather die than speak.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's pretty powerful. So you've decided you're going to teach them how to do this to help further their business and everything else. So what's the resistance like? We'll just start there and kind of work backwards. Like people like they get it, you're great at it. Wow, you explain. I would imagine you explain how it actually value, how it adds value to your business. Like you did
Hmm.
earlier talking about me and everything else. Like we get it, but like, are they hesitant on doing this? Are they? Is the fear real, or because they're business guys, maybe they sell, they're okay with it? What does that look like?
Yeah, some are hesitant, many more are fearful. You're in good company, by the way, if you're fearful. I mean, Barbara Streisand vomits before she ever goes on stage. Bill Russell, the basketball player, vomited before every basketball game. President Reagan vomited before every speech he ever gave. So I work with lots of introverts. A couple of weeks ago, we were working with this Silicon Valley company, and we're working with engineers. Now, engineers are usually pretty introverted. And one of my specialties is kind of spicing up presentations so they're much more engaging to audiences. And so I was working with this Indian gentleman who was just the nicest guy ever. And he was just so fearful. He's like, Danny, please, please, you have to make me funny. Please, please. I've got 12 minutes. You have to make me interesting. And so he has a very difficult name to pronounce. I'm not going to give you his real name, but we changed his presentation. So now he opens up. He's like, hello, my name is Shubhankar Majahardin. Gee, I sure hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. And I'm not trying to make him into a stand-up comedian.
Right,
I'm trying to
right.
get him so that the audience just grins and is like, oh, this guy's okay, because you have to bear with me. I'm a former teacher, so everything I teach is either it either rhymes or it's alliterative. And
That's
so
great.
my business partners, we have the Well-Crafted Story Workshop, so I call us it's Coach Jimmy Hayes, Nelson, Dave Ward, and myself. So I call us the professor, the performer, and the producer because my background is in academia. Coach Jimmy used to be a Broadway actor, and Dave used to be an attorney and an AI specialist in Silicon Valley. And between the three of us, we attack speeches from different ways. And what we take people through is our 5 C's process, which is before you write a word of your speech, you need clarity, knowing who your audience is and what's the problem that you're solving. And then once you get into your presentation, you have to connect with your audience, teach valuable content, have one clear call to action, and then end with an emotionally appealing close. And so, getting directly to the heart of the matter, in the first 5 minutes of your presentation, you really have to connect with your audience. And so I always tell people, you got to rap. Former teacher. So RAP stands for you got to show you're relatable, you have to demonstrate your authority, and you have to show your audience your purpose. So relatability. You have to basically create a presentation where you're showing your audience, I'm just like you. I've had that same problem that you've had, authority, and I solved that problem, purpose. And now my mission is to help people just like you so you don't have to suffer as I suffered. If you can basically design your presentation in that manner, you're going to connect with your audience much quicker. I watch, there's two ways you get better at speaking. I mean, basically, Richard, first of all, you got to watch lots of speakers. I watch 10 speakers a day. I watch politicians. I watch comedians. I watch televangelists. I watch them in front of big groups, in front of small groups, in front of men, in front of women. Here, I'll give your audience a ninja strategy. I watch a lot of televised award shows. And the reason is when the person wins the Academy Award, they only have 45 seconds to connect with their audience. I want to see how they use their time. Now, most people waste their time. They get up there like, I want to thank God. I want to thank the Academy. It's stupid. Nobody pays attention. But every now and then, somebody just hits a home run. So a few years ago, there was a gentleman by the name of Joe Walker who won the Academy Award for Best Film Editing. Now, Richard, this is Hollywood's elite are in the front of the room, the actors. And you can tell they're not paying attention. This is film editing. Who cares? And Joe Walker gets on stage. He's British. He speaks very slowly and deliberately. He says, a lot of people don't know this, but when phrased properly, the term Academy Award nominee can be used as an insult. Well, now the camera scans the crowd. You see people leaning in, like, what's he talking about? And he says, for example, yesterday I got in an argument with my 17-year-old daughter, and she said, well, Academy Award nominee Joe Walker. All of a sudden, you see everybody laughing hysterically. He gets off stage. Denzel Washington wants to meet him. Sandra Bullock wants to meet him. Brad Pitt wants to meet him. Time magazine said it was one of the highlights of the Academy Awards. Well done, Joe Walker. That's how you connect. So the first way to get better at speaking is to watch a lot of speakers. The second way to get better, I've been blessed with lots of wonderful coaches and mentors throughout my life. One of them was a guy by the name of Jim Rohn, and Jim used to say, you can't pay other people to do your push-ups. Translation, you got to do the reps. I always get my people speaking as much as they can. I'm like, even the smallest towns in America have a Rotary Club, a Lions Club, an Optimist Club, a Kiwanis Club. There's schools, there's churches, synagogues, temples, chambers of commerce. You got to get out there doing the reps because it's kind of like my youngest daughter right now, she's learning how to drive. And she's so cute, Richard, because she gets in the car and she adjusts all of her mirrors and she has her hands at the 10 o'clock and 2 o'clock positions. Man, in a year, she's going to be driving one hand, putting on makeup, eating a Big Mac, switching on the radio. And the reason is she'll be comfortable because she has the reps. This is a skill. I work with people all the time. Many of them are completely terrified. I mean, they say, Danny, you're so natural at this. And I'm like, okay, well, let me tell you a story. I was speaking to a school in India in 2018. And I got all the kids all pumped up, and the kids are coming up to me afterwards, all excited. And I look at this one little boy, and he's crying. And he's about 6 years old. He looks up at me, and I notice he's missing his left arm. And he says, how can I succeed? And so I get down to his eye level. I'm like, when I was your age, I went to 18 different schools before I was 12. Everybody called me stupid because I stuttered. And eventually I went to a school and a teacher, she worked one-on-one with me and she would sing things to me. And I found I could sing back without my stutter. It's kind of like the movie The King's Speech. And eventually I lost my stutter and I became a swan. But I looked into that little boy's eyes. I'm like, isn't it interesting that the little boy that everybody used to make fun of and say he was stupid because he couldn't speak right now gets paid ridiculous sums of money to travel the world to do what? And he gets the biggest grin on his face. He's like, speak. I'm like, don't let anybody ever tell you what you can't do. Anything is possible. And I work with a lot of people that are terrified of speaking, and there's simple strategies we work on. But the most important strategy is the more you practice it, the more comfortable you're going to be at it. I mean, same thing with like your podcast, Richard. I guarantee that the first time you did your podcast, you sucked. And the second time you sucked, but you didn't suck as bad as the first time. And now it's like a fine oiled machine and, no problem. You got it. You're very comfortable. But it's all of us. I always say before you're an expert, you're always an amateur. Even the president of the United States, when they're first elected, on the first day they're in the Oval Office, they don't feel like they should be there. When you go from kindergarten to first grade, you don't feel like you should be there. When you go from playing college athletics to pros, you don't feel like you belong. It takes a little bit of time.
Yeah, exactly. I always tell people, well, we all start at the same place, and that's called awful.
That's
Right?
right.
Everyone, whether you've never swung a bat or you're speaking, whatever it is. Like I had a guy on a podcast, and he was saying, "Well, I'm in a wheelchair and I can't." I go, "Oh, dude, what an advantage!" And he's just like, "Well," I go, "Man, you know what you can do with that?" Like, and I'm just telling him, like, "Man, you can make that work. You can use this for like connecting with people and everything else, and you've overcome." I'm like, "Dude, I don't have that." I'm like, and he's just like, "Oh, I never thought of it that way." I'm like, "It's true, man. Like this is like you're saying with the kid with the arm."
Mhm.
I told him, "Oh, you ever hear of Nick Vujicic?"
Mm,
He's like, no arms, no legs, got like two little fingers jumping up on me. That guy, you want to talk about a speaker?
yeah,
Okay, he's all over the world, right? What stopped him? I said, so you're just in a wheelchair. Okay, so you're exactly right. And I always remind everybody we're at that awful stage to begin.
mhm.
My kids, everyone else, and I love you say that. And it's when I first boxed. Okay, first day I got in the ring, never been in the ring before.
Uh-huh.
Okay, broken nose, got hit so hard with a left hook, my mouthpiece out of the ring across the gym. Okay, couldn't chew for 3 days. Okay, but this is the oddball I am. I went back the next day for more because I'm going to
Mm,
get good at this. I had two black eyes the whole way, but guess what? 2 years later, I'm a champion. I'm winning and doing all this stuff. 3 years I'm down. Now I'm the guy because I went back every single day. Just like you said, it's all about reps. It's all about time under tension, right? It's all about putting in the time and the practice and go screw up. The sooner you screw up, the sooner you're going to get better. Because
that's right.
man, you only learn when you screw up, pretty
What
much.
I what I love about what you just said, I mean, this is why you're a good coach, Richard, is I think one of the biggest mistakes people make when they speak is they brag. And I'm a big believer. I like Brene Brown is a wonderful speaker. She talks about vulnerability, and I completely agree with her on this point. I always tell people, first thing that you should do, stop talking about your successes. Start talking about your failures, because not everybody in your audience has succeeded, but they've all failed. And the more you share your own failures, the more your audience is going to see themselves in you. And this is what you're trying to do to be an effective speaker. Now, people can applaud and say, oh, I liked it, but I see so many speeches that there's no point. There's no careful construction to the presentation. And what I love about what you just said is you opened up a person's mind to what they saw as obstacles, you saw them as opportunities. If you watch, this is why I love watching comedians. They're the best at this. Kevin Hart is a short black guy. So what's he do? He makes fun about being a short black guy. Jim
Right.
Gaffigan's a big fat white guy. So what's he do? He makes fun of being a big fat white guy. By taking your perceived weakness and poking fun at yourself, you've actually now turned it into a strength and nobody can use it against you. It's actually one of the smartest strategies out there. So I commend you on that advice to that gentleman.
Thank you. Yeah, I just like, I think everyone's got potential. Everyone does to whatever degree, but like, so many people don't act on it, Danny.
Mm,
They just either they wallow in pity or they just don't think they can. No one's ever encouraged them. Now, I do have a saying. I say you can't motivate the unmotivated.
yeah,
Okay, so I just tell people, like, if you're not motivated, you go talk to some other unmotivated person because I can't help you because I'm
that's
about
right.
motivation. So you kind of, but if they're looking to do something and you can see something they don't, they'll grab it and they can run with that.
Yeah.
So I think it's great. I think it's really interesting that, well, I was really, excited to kind of have you on the show here, Danny, because what you do is, again, a huge fear for most people. I don't know when I was afraid. I think I was young. I think my first thing I ever did public was like in church, and it literally like read something. It was my talk, but I was reading it word for word. I had written it, and I was like, I don't know, fourth grade or something, fifth grade, and I'm just reading. It was miserable. I'm hating on myself with every word I'm reading. And then
Mhm.
I swore at that time, I remember this vividly, like I will never read anything ever again. And just that point, and I like to act like I was a clown, so that kind of helped, so I could do stuff.
Yeah.
But it did become, I took speech in class. I'm like, that's like one of the few things I liked in high school. It was speech and film study,
Mm,
and it was but I got into this. I'm like, oh, I like talking, to acting. I said, and it just kind of all culminated into this. Then I did my business, and now I'm speaking to people, and now I'm getting invited to the seminars, and and like doing multiple day things. So I don't think I ever laid it out to like be a speaker.
Hmm.
It just worked for me. And of course I had to sell what I made, right? Or what I'm going to make for people. So that became another element of speaking. Like that selling is, man, that's some, you can be powerful as a, like you said, the relatable aspect.
Um,
And that's a powerful place to hone those skills.
Yeah, that was a really good arc you just described. I mean, you went from reading a speech to then figuring out, well, how do I make this fun? That was great because that's something I know that Jimmy and I do that I don't see a lot of people doing. Jimmy and I met, we worked with a company that they would have like 50 executives in a room. Each executive would pay $25,000 to spend 2 days with us, and we would put together their presentation. And the problems that Jimmy and I identified with that approach was, first of all, these business people came from completely different industries, from like telecommunications and healthcare and real estate and finance. And so you couldn't really give them the attention that they needed based on their field. And then people would call us up like 3 months later and they'd say, well, I'm not converting still. And so Jimmy and I would say, well, just send me a video of your speech. And I'd watch the speech. I'm like, well, okay, you didn't do this and you put this in the wrong place. And another philosophy that Jimmy and I have is you don't get mastery in a 2 day workshop. I mean, that's just the beginning. This is why I'm a big believer in coaching, is we can go on the journey with you. But the biggest thing, and this touches upon what you were talking about, Richard, is it wasn't just this company. I see probably 9 out of 10 of the people that are coaching people to speak. They're like, oh, the way you can connect is talk about the worst moment of your life. And there's three reasons why I hate that approach. I mean, first of all, the world just survived a global pandemic. Everybody's had bad things happen to them. I don't think we need more sad stories. I think we need more stories of hope. Second of all, I'm teaching you how to create, we call it the well-crafted story. This is a speech you're going to deliver again and again. Do you really want to talk about the worst moment of your life again and again? I mean, I have a friend, his daughter was killed in a school shooting. He's told that story over 1,000 times. You have to be a lot stronger than me to relive the worst day of your life. I have no idea how he does that. And third, this is where people get angry with me. I have one objective when I'm on stage. I want you to leave feeling better than when you came in. I want you laughing, smiling, happy. I think there's something admirable about that as a basic objective. I believe these people that tell the same sad story again and again, by the 20th time they're telling it, now those are crocodile tears and now they're being manipulative. And I'm not saying it's not an effective sales strategy. It's actually a very effective sales strategy. But I personally, Richard, don't want to have to take a shower after I get off stage because I just manipulated my audience. There are actual ethical ways to get people interested in working with you. You don't have to stoop that low. And so this is a big key point that Jimmy and I are coaching our people all the time. Like, hey, what would make you comfortable? What's fun to you? How do we make this fun? And so I just love that you went from reading it to like, you know what, that stunk. There's got to be a better way. And you figured out your way. That's great. Again, this is why you're a good coach. This is what you got to show people, is figure out what works for you. Everybody's different. I mean, I always tell people, if you're not funny, don't tell jokes. And what I mean is nobody can be you better than you. What do you feel comfortable doing?
Yeah, it's so important. I do the same. So I'm on a lot of podcasts, just like you. So I'm on hundreds, right?
Hmm.
And there's stories. I have a story. And do I say it the same every time? No. It depends who I'm talking to and everything else, or the story comes later.
Yeah.
Like I don't start with that story. Like I'm not gonna lead with everything this way, like if we want to talk about that, we'll talk about it. Otherwise we'll go a different direction. I've been on so many, I was on one a few weeks ago that we just rolled for like an hour and a half. It was amazing. I mean, the stories, stuff coming out. He reminded me, if you ever heard like Sean Ryan, his podcast, right? He says about four things in 3 hours. Okay, like the guys, whoever his guests are, they're just, and he'll go, "Oh, so why do that?" And then it's like another 20 minutes. The guy and they're brilliant.
Yeah.
This guy was such a good. He was like that. So I go, "Am I like rolling too much?" He goes, "Dude, you're making my job easy. This is great because we're just getting to the next thing. We hit another story and we combine it with what we're talking about. It's so you get to that point where you're not entertaining per se, but you are. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? But you're being authentic and going through this. And I told him, because I do. You said about watching people speak. Now you can. I'd love to get your quick opinion. So I listen to almost every single podcast I've been on.
Great.
I want to hear what I did. I mean, in the beginning, you're like, "Ooh, I better not talk about my brother like that. He might hear this. I'm throwing him under the bus." You know what I mean? So it's like, so, but you learn. But I'm like, and my wife gives me a lot of guff about this, and I'm like, "Well, listen." She goes, Are you really listening to yourself?" I go, "That's how I learn." Like that, I've really gotten better because I listened. Like, "Ooh, I could have had this reply or that reply, or like I could have worded this better." Right? As I get into this stuff, so they kind of make fun of me, but I think I mean, it's time consuming, but like it's really helped me to be able to communicate better. Do you do that? Any of that kind of stuff? You really looking at what you do, or how does
I
that
don't
work?
have to. Usually my wife gives me all the feedback I need. She said for years, she's like, "You look gay on stage."
Yeah.
And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" And I'm like,
Yeah.
"Oh my God." And if there's one person in the world that should know I'm not gay, it should be my wife.
That's right.
But
Yes.
not that there's anything wrong with it, but she'll always give me feedback like that. I, I used to, it's kind of like why I don't really listen to comments anymore. I used to look at all my
Right.
comments, and the problem with doing that, and I tell people to avoid that, and the reason is, inevitably you're going to get 500 people that think you're the Christ, and then there's going to be two people that think you're the Antichrist, and you're just going to focus on those two negative
Mm-hmm.
comments. And
That's
it's
it.
just not very productive. I mean, even then, you're basically doing it for your ego anyway, because it's not really useful feedback. Usually it's like, you were great or you stink. I mean, it doesn't tell
Yeah.
me. I had a coach and she was great. She sat there, she watched my presentation, and then she bought me dinner at a Mexican restaurant at the Charlotte airport. And for 2 hours, she went minute by minute in my speech. She's like, this PowerPoint slide, the font was too small. You said this joke and not many people laughed at it. Why do you think so? I mean, she went, it was the greatest feedback.
Wow.
And it's still to this day the best coaching I've ever received on speaking. Uh, but that was absolutely phenomenal. I want the people I'm coaching, I don't want them freaking out. They're always their own worst critics. And, I have a
Mhm.
woman right now, and she's like, I just totally bombed. I'm like, really? It's the second time you've given the speech and it's not perfect yet? I mean, be a little bit graceful of yourself. It takes time to get better at these things. And, I know you see this too with your clients. It's just fun watching them doubt themselves. And, I mean, I don't think any of my clients enjoy the journey. I enjoy their journey because I get to see the
Yep.
growth. I bring this up just because I was speaking a couple of weeks ago, and the first two speakers, both of them irritated me. They were both egotistical, and they just rubbed me the wrong way. And so I decided to get them on stage because they both talked about enjoying the journey. And I said, "You ever notice the people that enjoy the journey have already succeeded?" I
Yeah.
mean, when you couldn't pay rent, were you like, man, I'm really enjoying this journey. This is great. Where am I going to get my next meal? I'm having a lot of fun. And then the other thing that annoyed me is they were both introduced as thought leaders,
Oh.
which is the most irritating things in the world to me. I got on stage. I said, hey, raise your hand. Who needs another thought? Raise your hand if you need another thought. I'm a results leader. Who needs a result?
There you
I'm
go.
not interested in thoughts. I'm interested in results. Same thing with when I'm working with my clients. I'm like, we're only looking at your numbers. So, for example, Jimmy and I worked with this guy named Richard, financial planner. And so, he used to start off his presentation. Oh, I've been in the industry for 30 years. I've made my clients over $1 billion. I worked with this famous person and this famous person. I said, time out, Richard. What are the three most important elements of real estate? Location, location, location. It's all right to brag, but you're doing it in the wrong part of your presentation. And so we changed his opening. So now he talks about the very first client he ever booked 30 years ago. And it's this hilarious story. It's a comedy of errors. I have no idea why this person invested money with him. But this was the interesting feedback, Richard. So he, I'm saying, maybe that's why I called him Richard, because, okay, Richard,
It's
Richard.
okay.
I got double Richards. So the way he would get business is like twice a week. He has about 15 couples in their 50s. He invites them to a steak restaurant, and they get a free steak dinner, but they have to listen to his pitch for an hour. And he noticed it immediately. He said, usually the husband's sitting there during dinner with his arms crossed, like, how much is this going to cost? What do I got to do? How long is it going to take? Now that he's changed the story, he said the same guy, he noticed it immediately. The same guy is patting his knee because he's laughing so hard, and which is great. But this is the reason I tell the story. So his call to action is to book an appointment at a consultation at his office. And he said that out of the 15 couples, he used to average about six of the couples would book a consultation. Now that he's changed the story, now it's 12 of the 15 couples. And this is
Nice.
what we're looking for is we want it. I mean, you got to be intentional with your presentation. Here, I'll give your audience, here's a great little ninja strat. This is actually the first activity I do with most clients. So I want, and you can do the same thing, Richard, is later on, get in a comfortable chair with a pen and paper, libation of choice, and for an hour, I want you to write down every story that's ever happened to you. And I don't mean the entire story, I just mean triggers, like the time I locked myself out of the car in front of Costco, the time dad spilt mustard on his tie when we went to that fancy restaurant. You'll find in an hour, you can come up with hundreds of stories like this. So that's the first part of the exercise. The second part of the exercise is then you want to figure out what's this story really about. Oh, this is a story about never giving up. Oh, this is a story about building and maintaining trust. Oh, this is a story about loyalty. And so on my computer, I have hundreds of files with thousands, if not tens of thousands of stories like this. And so when I'm crafting a presentation, I'm looking for a specific story for a specific emotion in my audience. So, for example, Jimmy and I worked with a woman, Melissa. She's a nutrition expert, a holistic nutrition expert. And so her problem, so she had these intestinal problems when she was growing up, and no doctor knew how to change her diet. And so she crafts diets for women with intestinal problems, and she's created a really good niche out of that. But she didn't know how to close her presentation. She gave her offer, her 90-day coaching program. But again, Jimmy and I always say there's Joe Fridays and Julia Roberts in the audience. And so I'll be stereotypical and say it's the husband and the wife. So the husband is the Joe Friday. He wants just the facts. How much is it going to cost? How long is it going to take? Things like that. And you have to be very clear in your offer to make sure that you're accommodating that person and giving them the answers to those questions. But if you only end on your presentation there, you've ignored Julia Roberts, the wife. Julia Roberts, she just wants to feel good. Gosh, Richard makes me feel good. I want Richard to be my coach. He's a nice guy. I like Richard. And so you have to end your presentation. One of the strategies, there's lots of different ways to end. So with Melissa, I asked her, well, what do you want your audience to do? And she said, I want them to understand they can't do it on their own. I said, oh, you need to hire an expert story. She's like, what's that? I'm like, okay, I'll give you an example. So I'll leave you with this. Many years ago, my wife and I had theater tickets. We were dressed to the nines, headed towards the theater when we got a flat tire. My wife said, well, I'll call AAA. I'm like, you don't have to call AAA. I'm a man. I can fix a flat tire. So I went to the trunk and I opened up the trunk and I got the spare tire and then I got the pumper thing and then I got the thing that's like a big Jack X thing and I started trying to unscrew the nuts on the tire and basically, 27 minutes later, I have grease all over my hands. I haven't fixed the flat tire. My wife is shaking her head like, I could have done so much better than this guy. Well, unbeknownst to me, she'd called AAA. This tow truck shows up, and this 17-year-old punk hops out, and he changes my flat tire in 3 minutes flat. You know, I think there are times in life when all of us think we can do this on our own, but if you want to save time, you want to save money, and you want to save a whole lot of headache and embarrassment, you hire an expert. And so the purpose of this story is Melissa's given a really great talk on nutritional information, but she can't end her presentation like that because the audience has grown weary of the nutritional talk. What she's done
Mhm.
now is taken a completely metaphorical story that's basically subliminally telling the audience, hey, this is important. You can't do this on your own. You need somebody with the experience on how to do that. So it's just you just have to be much more intentional. There's lots of little mistakes. People that think they're ineffective speakers, I'm like, you're not an ineffective speaker. You're just doing the wrong things. There's just little tweaks. It's kind of like you were talking about your specialties now. I mean, everybody has specialties.
Yeah.
But like this is why I love people that get coaches because they understand the importance of a coach. Like Tiger Woods, greatest golfer on the planet. He has a putting coach. He has a driving coach. He has a mental coach. Maybe he should have hired a relationship coach,
Right.
but
Late to the game on that one.
Exactly. So this is what I mean, Jimmy always calls himself a story chiropractor. I'm like, oh, that's actually because we make tweaks to presentations. I'm like,
Yeah.
we need to change where this is in your presentation.
Yeah, that I think that's a great takeaway because I've noticed the same thing. Like, I'll do like a webinar, right? So you get a webinar together. I'm gonna do these webinars. I'm gonna do them live and everything else. And I like that because all of a sudden I have to write it out. I got to put these slides together and everything else, and I got to say it a certain way. I got to abbreviate on there where it still makes sense, but I'm going to say it differently. And I use it as keys to what to say.
Hmm.
When I used to like an hour speak on water features, like building, and I had back in the slide days, had got the whole carousel and everything else, right? So I basically I just waited, whatever picture came up told me what to say. And I
Yeah.
would just spend a minute or less on that. I'm like, okay, it's a minute or less per slide. I just would click through, but I started to learn like, okay, that shouldn't be there. That same principle, right? I moved these slides in my deck, like, okay, I don't know, I should talk about this one up here. So I end up with pictures crafting my story that I was going to deliver to these, 500 contractors. Want to know how to build ponds. So it was like you said, it's this, you go through it and you go through it and you're like, okay, I'm not connecting enough. My other special technique, Danny, was when someone was nodding off, I made a trip to the audience. you know,
Ah,
and then we stand next to him. I go, and then I kind of like be talking. Everyone's looking at me, and I kind of nudge the guy with my knee, like if he's on there or something. And I go, "Are we keeping you up? Come on up here with me." And I'll bring him up to the stage. I bring him up to the stage, start asking him questions and stuff like that. So I do these dumb little things.
mhm.
One of the guys, just to throw a name out there, I was at a conference who I thought was a really brilliant speaker. I'm sure you probably know at least of him is Andy Andrews.
Great
If you
speaker.
ever heard that guy, I mean, what a speaker. I mean,
Mhm.
he's a talented dude. And I heard him, I go, man, he's got some experience, man. That guy he can deliver a story. It was really impressive. So, and I learned from those kind of guys.
Yeah,
Little
the ministers are always a good starting point. They
yeah,
they
yeah.
they have to come up with a new speech a 23-minute speech every single
That's,
week.
that's
Pretty good.
right. All right. So I love what you're saying. I mean, the tweaking and just putting this stuff together. But when you were mentioning before, like we all have a purpose to give this speech, right? And there's has to the clarity part when you first talked about clarity is really important because you really have to know where they're going after,
Hmm.
right? And that's that whole end. That wrap up was awesome with the nutritionist. Like you've got to, because it's always I do the benefits over features and all that kind of stuff. Don't bore people with features and let's talk benefits, but it's always that call to action. Let's kind of talk about that because man, that's the money. Let's be real, right? I've been at conferences and the guy talks for 60, 90 minutes, and then
Hmm.
his call to action, go to the back table and do this is $2,500. And I remember I'm standing there and I'm counting all these people lined up at the tables. I'm like, 25, there's 125 people standing to pay this guy 25 bucks, which is just the entry level. I'm like, this is amazing. I want
Yeah.
that. Okay. So I'm like, how do you do that? Watching this. So like, I always want to think, even with webinars, everything else, like you've got that call to action at the end, that ability to get them there, to kind of re-wake them, like you said, I think is really, really powerful, and
Well,
that's,
what you really need, Richard, is one clear call to action. This is the biggest mistake I see most people make. So again, former teacher, everything rhymes. Choices confuse and cause you to lose. Translation, give your audience one clear call to action that they can do. So, for example, I was on a podcast and the hostess at the end of the podcast, she said, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Make sure you like, subscribe, and give us a 5-star review. We got off the air and I said, you just asked your audience to do three different things. They ain't going to do any of them. Like you need to be very clear about so that event where you saw the gentleman come to the back of the room, he was very clear, come to the back of the room. This is why I love live events because you can also create a wave because people don't make decisions based on logic. They make it based on emotion. And when they see people running to the back of the room. They want to be
yep.
part of that stampede. This is why it's so powerful being having a live event. It's not the only way to get people to do things, but it's a very effective way to do things. But you need that clear call to action. I mean, this is why, if you go to get mustard at the grocery store at your local Ralph's or Kroger or Publix or Smith's or whatever your big grocery store chain is, you're going to get mustard. You're going to look, and there's going to be like 38 different types of mustard. This is the reason why the number one grocery store chain in America based on volume is Trader Joe's. Because when you go to Trader Joe's to get mustard, you go there and you look, and there's one option, mustard. They've made the choice for you. You have to be very, very clear in your call to action. And this is something I see people screw up all the time. And just by making that one little tweak, you could really increase your impact.
Yeah, for sure. I did a lot of, I used to do done for you sales presentations for
Mhm.
companies. So I created all, brand it, tell them exactly what, I walk them through step by step. Here's the video of what you say. Here's the transcript. Here's this. I go because a confused mind does nothing. I said, same principle. Like we're going to show them this and this. They're going to walk through. They have three options. They throw one away. Now they choose from two. You break it down. Then they have this. They have the low end. They get this. Here's the most popular. You always got that. They don't do that for no reason because people want to follow the herd.
Mhm.
Okay. Well, if everyone else is getting this, probably good for me too.
That's
The
right.
high end people will be the high end people. They'll go with your high end thing. Most people are going to throw that one out and go with your economy one or the mid grade,
Yeah.
and they're going to do that. So same principle. So I love it. I love it, Dan. This is really awesome. So I think out of this, understanding the close, the call to action is really, really key. Uh, and you've hit every point. So we've gone from kind of the opening, great options on the opening, the meat of the story, which we touched on a bit, but let's hit that real quick before we wrap up. Just when we get inside, so you've got a great call to action at the end, you got a
Mhm.
great opening, the meat, like this is where I see people mess up too. And obviously
Mhm.
that's why you're a coach and you got to take them through every single step because if everything has to lead into the next. Do you find is that a struggle for people, or like I was saying, are they stuck on features and not benefits, or what does that kind of look like at a high view?
So this is interesting about the content portion of your presentation. It's the longest part of your presentation, and it's actually the least important because there's lots of research. So I'm the professor. Everything has to be research based. If you want your opinion, ask Edna. If you want research, come to me. I'll tell you why. It's called the primacy and recency effect. Your audience tends to remember the beginning of your presentation and the end of your presentation. They don't remember anything in between. But what is important is they remember if you were helpful. I believe whether the audience decides to take the next step with you or not, you have a responsibility to your audience to serve that audience because they just gave you their most precious asset, their time. And so what can I do to help my audience while they're with me? And this is fascinating, Richard. It actually doesn't have to have anything to do with your talk. So one of my mentors was a guy by the name of Jim Trelease. And so he used to teach parents how to read aloud to their kids. And all of a sudden, in the middle of his talk, he's like, oh, I'm going to teach you something. This is going to save your life someday. If you ever lock yourself out of your car, as long as you have your cell phone, call your spouse, have your spouse put your car keys next to the cell phone. You put your cell phone next to the car door, it'll unlock the car door. Richard, I've done this from 3,000 miles away with a Toyota and a Lexus. It works. It doesn't probably work with a Tesla, but this works. This has nothing to do with his talk, and yet he has people 10 years later, but he's passed on now, but 10 years later, people be like, oh my gosh, I've told everybody about what a great speaker you are. You're so helpful. I had to do that. It had nothing to do with his talk.
Right.
But what the human mind's interesting. What he did, which was very strategic, is he built trust. I'm going to give you something you can use right now. So, for example, I was training a woman the other day. She works with clinical depression patients. And so I had her give a speech to people suffering from clinical depression. I said, okay, everybody, take out a pen, bite down on it. So when you bite down on a pen, it actually tricks your brain into thinking you're smiling, and it triggers your brain to produce endorphins, which your brain actually produces the same number of endorphins as if you're biting a pen, as if you were actually smiling. So there's actually a little strategy. You can trick yourself into happiness. And what it does is it gets a laugh from the audience,
Right.
but it's actually a useful strategy. Is, oh, okay, I'm down. This is one way to get me up. I tell audiences, I'm like, most people use this to waste time. They go on social media. I use it as a strategic tool. I mean, I'm always trying to learn things. And so I have calendar updates. And so I'm a bad Christian every day right now. I've been working on at 4:29 p.m. Ephesians 4:29, which is do not let any unwholesome talk come out of your mouth, but only what is helpful in building others up according to their needs, that it may benefit those who listen. So I've been doing all right with that. I enjoyed the book Dune. There's a thing called the Litany Against Fear. So every morning at 9:11, I practice the Litany Against Fear. I must not fear. Fear is the mind killer. Fear is the little death. I'm working on it. I got married on December 20th. So every day at 12:20, I have a reminder to myself to text my wife that I love her. You know, I'm showing the audience, here's something that all of you have. Here's a way to use it in a beneficial manner. You had said something earlier too, Richard, and I thought it was genius. Uh, People always ask me how I write speeches. I'm like, I've actually never written a speech in my life. What I do is I illegally download images off of Google into a PowerPoint, and those pictures guide me through my presentation, just like
Yep.
you. Walt Disney said people think in pictures, and I have never had a person 6 months after one of my talks say, "Oh, Danny, you know what I remember the most about your talk was that one PowerPoint slide with the 18 bullet points that you couldn't read because the font was so small." I've never had a person ever say that because people think in pictures. And to demonstrate, I'll demonstrate this with you right now. I want you to think of an apple, Richard. Give you a couple of seconds. And once you've thought of an apple, I want you to describe what you just thought of. Tell me.
A red orb with a little stem out the top, a little fuzzy thing on the bottom, and I'm preferring Honey Crisp, and I
Great.
like
So
the sweet tart.
I've done this with thousands of people. I've had people describe that, or the Fuji apple, or Granny Smith apple. Some people get clever. They say, "Oh, I thought of an Apple computer or an iPhone." I've yet to meet a person in any of my audiences who says, "Oh, I thought of APPLE." Now, because you
Yeah,
don't think,
right,
you think in
right,
pictures. So
right.
I wanted to commend you on that. For that's a great little strategy that you had. And if you watch the news every night, think about it. When I mean, I don't watch the news anymore, so I'm going to date myself.
I
So
don't either. I
yeah,
don't either.
yeah, that's why I'm a happy person.
Sure.
Peter Jennings, when Peter Jennings is talking about the war in Iraq, he doesn't have a PowerPoint slide with bullet points in the upper right-hand corner. There's basically a picture of an explosion.
Yep.
And what it's doing is, okay, this is a war story. It's a little technique, an association technique. So I commend you on that. That's highbrow stuff.
Yeah, I was one of my webinars. I'm talking about startups and business failure, and I'm like, listen, 97% of all businesses that start within 5 years fail. And then my next picture is Navy SEALs carrying the boat. I said, so what that means, you have a better chance of becoming a Navy SEAL. They only have a 90% fail rate than you
Uh,
do at succeeding at your
that's a
business.
good point. I
And
love
people are
that.
like, oh, dang. I'm like, but here's the insider's playbook for business startups. This is what we do. So I know exactly where you go. I love it. I just love that
Great.
stuff, man. So pictures are so powerful. We all
Absolutely.
know they're worth 1,000 words plus, but I'm telling you, like, man, I love it. So, Danny, we could go on and on
No, we
because we're
could.
both chatters, but this has been awesome. This you brought just such great things. I mean, to me, again, I'm not afraid to speak. Obviously, I've done this long enough, but I think you've lowered a lot of apprehension in people for the ability to like get into this and understand the power of what this can do for your business. And it doesn't matter whether you're the blue collar plumber guy or you're a high level executive or whatever. This is a skill set that everyone should have in their repertoire, as far as I'm concerned, because it's only going to make things better for you, your business, all the way around.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Well, and as a thank you for having me on today, Richard, and you and your audience having to listen to all my stories, I wanted to give everybody a freebie. So if you go to freestoryguide.com, guide like a tour guide, freestoryguide.com, I'm going to give you your own complimentary, well-crafted story blueprint. What this is the actual process that Coach Jimmy and I take our clients through on how to create your well-crafted story. What this does for you is it takes the guesswork out of why should I put this here and where should I put it. What this means for you is the peace of mind that I have a client acquisition system that's going to keep on getting me more and more clients and help me build my impact. You can get that at freestoryguide.com. And again, Richard, thank you so much for having me on today. I really appreciate you.
Well, Danny, I appreciate you. And for everyone else, take advantage of that. Get it. It's free. Go to it. Get it. Be an action taker, do that. And for everybody else, we'll see you on the next STS podcast. Thanks for tuning in to Sharpen the Spear podcast. If today's episode helped you think sharper, act smarter, or see new profit potential, do me a favor. Share it with a fellow home service owner and leave a quick review. Ready to find the profit hiding in your business? Head to sharpenthespearcoaching.com and book your free profit discovery call today. And until next time, keep sharpening.